Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, coast to coast. In love, there is no such thing as one size fits all. Working in the medical field for more than 20 years, Melissa Roberts has learned that some of life's biggest stressors, marriage, relationships, and family, could be transformed into some of life's biggest happiness makers. All we need is to look at things with a more open mind. In her critically acclaimed contemporary romance, Because of You, Chasing Oklahoma, Melissa suggests that love can be shared. It's possible to be deeply in love with more than one person. With a strong foundation of marriage and family, non-traditional additional relationships are possible. Melissa grew up on the East Coast, currently lives in Incline Village, Nevada, dedicated 20 years of her life working in the medical field and enjoyed every minute of it. She's an avid outdoors enthusiast and runner, really loves living in the Lake Tahoe area, a dedicated wife and mother, and although she lives on the West Coast, always will be a Southern girl at heart. Melissa Roberts, author of Because of You, Chasing Oklahoma, a story of forgiveness and unconditional love, and the struggles of one family to keep it all hidden for more than 3 decades. Melissa, our guest on This Week in America. Melissa, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. What a nice job you've done with this book, and it's an entertaining read and gets people thinking as well. So you've rung both of those bells with that. That's always a good thing to get people thinking after they've been entertained. Let's talk about the inspiration for this story. Where did this idea come from, and how long did it take you to write this?
You know, Rick, I've been outlining the book for about 2 years, but once I started writing it was fairly quickly, probably 6 months it took me to write the book. There are 3 of them. And I think anyone as a writer will tell you, anytime you write a book, there's a little bit of reality in all of it,
yes,
tattered through it. For me, I married at a very young age, and that marriage ended as a result of assumed infidelity. And I realized very quickly that I not only lost a husband, I lost a family that day, because, his family and we were all very close. Our families were close, and I never found that again. And I just wish that we as a couple had looked at things differently, instead of just viewing it as divorce.
Yes.
Yes.
The book is Because of You. This is the first of 3. Chasing Oklahoma. Melissa Roberts, our guest on the program. Book available at Amazon, the usual places. We'll have it all listed on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Let's talk a little bit about characters in the book. Talk about those, and then maybe your favorite character. Is there one that really jumps out at you? When you were writing, you thought, wow, I like where this character is taking me.
My favorite character in the book is Nicole, hands down. Her level of unconditional love is unprecedented. It was her determination that kept this family together for 30 years. There was many times throughout their life that Taylor, which was the mistress in the book, she would have given up, and Shawn also. But Nicole realized very early on that she needed to do what she needed to do to keep her family together. And she realized that the 3 of them were better together than apart. But I wish that I could have that type of unconditional love. You can write about it all day long, but actually having it is a totally different story. And Nicole has that. She is an amazing person, and she was determined from day one to keep this family together. And rather than losing her husband and her family, she chose to form this amazing sisterhood with Taylor. And I wish I could be more like her, but I'm not. I'm a runner. I'm more like Taylor. If things get tough, I'm out of there. And I wish I could be more like Nicole. She is definitely hands down my favorite character.
Well, it's interesting because you get to be all of these characters, at least in your mind, don't you? As you're writing this, you get to be, I wish a little bit more like Nicole. Maybe I'm not in real life, but I'm going to make Nicole like I would like to be. And you have that ability to bring out these characters, and you make these characters all all very real. Talk about developing the characters, because they're very relatable, and you lay out the scenario and some people might go, well, that wouldn't work. Well, look, we actually see it work. Talk about developing the characters, how much fun that is to bring these characters out and to get your message by using the characters.
It is. And the book, I've gotten reviews from both sides. I have reviews from people that totally get the story and the concept, and then reviews that say you have to be nuts to think that this plural relationship is going to work. But the concept of the book is not the plural relationship. It is the sisterhood that these two women formed, as and they share the love of one man, but they have an incredible relationship. They're best friends, and the whole concept of the book is not necessarily the plural relationship, but it's more of a concept of unconditional love and forgiveness, and try to live outside the box and not be closed in and try to do what society tells you that you should do. For 30 years, this family has hid this amazing relationship because
Yes.
of fear that he would lose his career. And I think that's the whole message of the book is unconditional love, looking outside the box, thinking outside the box, and just being who you are and not caring about what other people think. And I think every single character displays that. The only character that I feel like I did not do a good job with is Shawn, because I feel like I assassinated his character very early on in the book. And that was never my intention. He is an amazing person. And as you continue reading the second one, Chasing Santa Barbara, you will really get that concept.
Is that one of the nice things about writing a series where you have a sequel, and I think you believe the three in this, that you can develop, you can even sort of change these characters? I mean, as people, we evolve. The same Shawn from 10 years ago may not be who Shawn is today. Is that part of the benefit of having, in this case, a trilogy, that you can take these characters in different directions because we all evolve?
Yes, we do. We do evolve. And Shawn really does evolve in the second book. And he actually does toward the end of Chasing Oklahoma. He regrets a lot of his actions, but he also realizes that he can't go back and change it. And he reacted out of anger and fear mostly more than anger. But as he grows in his career and his relationship with his family, he realizes family was number one, and he never meant, to put his career first. And he really didn't. Taylor did, but he really does evolve, and he does grow in the second book, and he's an amazing person. He's an amazing character.
When Nashville comes to mind, when you're talking about success in country music, you've got this set in Oklahoma. Talk about that and just sort of bring us up to speed on Shawn and the success that he's having and why you ended up in Oklahoma instead of Nashville.
Well, I personally love Oklahoma, and that's why I wrote that into my story. But I love all genres of music, but country music is my favorite. And while most people think of Nashville when they think of country music, I always go to Oklahoma. Some of my favorite artists are from Oklahoma. And I just love the state of Oklahoma. And what was the other question you asked me? I'm sorry.
Well, in fact, when you bring that up, Blake Shelton, I think, has a place in Oklahoma. I've heard him talk on The Voice a lot about that. But yeah. And with Shawn's career, he really is successful, isn't he? Talk a little bit. Just don't want to give away too much here, but he's a successful country performer.
He is, and in the beginning of the book, he was not. In the beginning of the book, they were very lower to barely middle class. He and his wife Nicole, and he was singing in bars every weekend, just trying to get noticed. But he just was never getting it right, and that's when he met Taylor. Was in a bar one night singing, and several years into their relationship, his career just exploded. His music got into the hands of the right people. He got a record deal, but Taylor told him in the beginning, if this happens, I'm checking out of here because I can't risk my family finding out about this relationship. But his career really explodes, and once he builds a solid fan base, he no longer cares what anyone thinks. But he realizes to protect Taylor and her family, he's got to keep it a secret. And that's why Nicole would have brought it, to light years earlier, but they did not.
The book we're talking about is Because of You, Chasing Oklahoma. It's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places. Melissa Roberts is our guest and the author of the book. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Are there any characters, places in the book? You mentioned Oklahoma, and that's really it's significant in your life because you really like that state. Characters, places that are significant to you as you're writing that you sort of worked into the story because they're important to you.
Yes, I love Oklahoma, but most of the story in Taylor's life is based in Florida. I went to college in Tampa, Florida, so I was very familiar with the area. And I had two best friends there. And, we went through a lot of things together. And those two best friends were mirrored in that book. West Shore Boulevard, Krispy Kreme donuts, those places were all very real for me. When either of the three of us would have an issue or a problem, we didn't go and belly up at a bar. We got massive amounts of Krispy Kreme donuts with milk. And we would go sit on West Shore Boulevard. And that's where we talked about everything. We talked about everything. We cried there. We laughed there. We had fights there. But when we left West Shore Boulevard, we left it there. And that was the beauty of our friendship. And so, yeah, a lot of that is mirrored in my life. And a lot of those places are very real.
And instead of the bar, if you hit Krispy Kreme, there's no hangover the next morning. I mean,
Exactly.
you finish off a dozen or so of those suckers and you're ready to go on with life the next day. It was not going to be a big problem. When you write a book about this and people would read this and go, this sounds so realistic. Have you ever seen yourself? Could you see yourself? Have you seen yourself in a plural relationship?
I have never been in one, but I would, it's something that I would definitely do if I could find someone like Nicole.
And that's important, right? It's not for everybody. It needs somebody with an open mind who has the emotional stability to handle this.
Yes, absolutely. And it would definitely be something I would do.
What is sort of the take-home message for the book? Again, it's very entertaining, but it gets you thinking. There's so many different layers to the stories and the characters that we've seen so far just in Chasing Oklahoma. Is there a take-home message you want for the readers, for them to sort of take with them when they finish that last page?
Well, honestly, I think the take-home message needs to be, we need to not be so hard on ourselves and be less quick to judge other people and their situations in their life. We need to have more unconditional love, especially these days.
Exactly. Yes.
I feel like what works for some families may or may not work for others. But at the end of the day, if the family is happy and thriving, that should be all that matters. We should not judge others. We should not judge ourselves. And when you get to the end of Chasing Oklahoma, you really, or personally, I really feel bad for Taylor that she never had the confidence to say, I can do this. I want to be with my family. I don't want to be separated from my children. Our relationship is okay. Why can't it be okay for everyone else? And I think I really want that to be the take-home message: is unforgivable love. I'm sorry, unconditional love and forgiveness. That's the two things that I want the message to be from this book. It's not about, two women having a relationship, or fighting over a man. It's really what works for you and your family.
Yeah, it's much more than that. That's why this book is so compelling and receiving the excellent reviews that it's receiving. Because if you Chasing Oklahoma, talk about the next book. That's Santa Barbara, right? And is that ready to be published?
Yes, Chasing Santa Barbara is in editing, and I'm hoping to get it out in the fall. And it ties things. It's a much longer read. It's going to tie things up for this family, and you're going to see exactly where they went and how it turned out for them. And then it really is a beautiful story. And Taylor is going to give in and realize that life could have been beautiful 30 years earlier, and she put it off. And then Chasing Fireflies is the third book, and that will be out next fall in 1 year. And that's going to be all about the children that were a product of this relationship and where they are now and what they're doing.
looking forward to all of those and reading Chasing Oklahoma. That's where you start. That's sort of the first base for this trilogy that Melissa has put together. When you started writing Chasing Oklahoma, did you foresee this being a trilogy, or did, as you were into the story, go, I got a lot here. I've got more than one book here in what I'm trying to develop?
Yes, actually, initially it was going to be one book, and the editor wanted it split into two separate books. And so that's how the two separate books came about. And now I'm kind of glad I did it that way, because Chasing Oklahoma really just lays the foundation
Yes.
of who these people are and where they've been and where they hope to go. And then Chasing Santa Barbara is more about, the decisions that they made, that moved them forward in their life.
And I would think from an author standpoint, that gives you the liberty, the creative freedom to actually develop the storyline, develop the characters. You're not rushing to wrap this up in so many words. You've got about as many words as you want, because if you go long, you just make a book number 2 or book number 3.
Right. That is correct. Yes. And I love it. I love the story. I'm very passionate about it. And actually, because I did it this way, now I have an opportunity to kind of revamp Shawn so I don't, assassinate his character.
Yes.
From the beginning, So I'm kind of glad that I did it that way.
So after you read Chasing Oklahoma, it's like, I wish I would have done. Well, I can do it differently. I can put a little different spin on Shawn in the next book that I write, Chasing Santa Barbara. Book's available at Amazon, all of the usual places. You do so well in this series. Any other genres that you've written in or would like to?
Yes, actually, I have a psychological thriller that I hope to be out in the spring of 2021. It's called The Truth About Emma, and it is kind of spooky.
Looking
so it's
forward
totally different than the romance books, but
Yes.
that one is it's gonna teeter on the edge of fear.
Are you a fan of that genre?
I am. I'm a hopeless romantic, so I love romance novels, but I really like psychological thrillers and horror stories. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Yeah, I read both genres and I love them both, but I am a hopeless romantic. I lean more toward romance stuff, but yeah, I love scary movies.
A minute or so left in the program. I mentioned the years that you spent in the medical field. How has that impacted you creatively as a writer? I'm sure you've seen a lot during that period as sort of a nice way to study psychology of the human psyche as you're dealing in the medical field.
It really has. And when I was working in the medical field, I worked for a company and I traveled. So I was never in a place more than about 14 weeks at a time. And during that 14 weeks, I met a lot of people. And funny that you bring that up, because that was a huge influence in writing these books. I worked with a girl she and I became very good friends, and she finds out that her husband has a second family. So I walked that road with her, and I saw the path that she took. And those things do resonate with you as a writer, and these things all come back up. And when you think about the two different ways that it was handled, and could it have been handled or done differently, so yeah, I met a lot of people along the way where infidelity or the fear of infidelity, or even, in my case, it wasn't even confirmed. It was just, we couldn't see outside the box. So that has impacted, my career did impact hugely the writing of these books.
So if you think an author does research, they go to the library, they Google to get some research, basically your life experiences are research in how you develop characters and storylines. I mean, all of that. And it's interesting because could you have written this book 20, 25 years ago?
No, absolutely not. It took a lot of life experience and knowledge to wrap my head around all this. I mean, if in my 20s or even 30s, if you had even mentioned this book to me, I would have been like, that is just nuts and crazy. And no, absolutely not. I think it took experience and, thinking about my life and things that I could have done differently. I love my life. I've always landed on my feet, but it doesn't always happen that way. I that I had thought of things differently then as I do now.
Yeah, the perspective changes over the years, and we see that, as you mentioned, Shawn, as his character evolves over the course of several books. This specific book, the first in the trilogy, is Because of You, Chasing Oklahoma. Melissa Roberts is our guest on the program. The story of forgiveness and unconditional love. You'll find it at Amazon, all of the usual places. You'll have a link on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Melissa, this has been fun. Congratulations on the success of Because of You, Chasing Oklahoma. Looking forward for books 2 and 3 in the series. Thank you for being with us on the program today.
Thank you so much, Rick, for having me, and I hope you'll have me back with Chasing Santa Barbara.
We'd love to. Can't wait to do that. We'll continue the story of Taylor, Shawn, Nicole, and how things change, and we get the impression they're going to. So we'll be looking forward to the next book in the series. The book, once again, Because of You, Chasing Oklahoma. Melissa Roberts, our guest on the program. You're listening to This Week in America, and we're back after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.